AI lawyers, well, not quite lawyers yet,
Yeah.
but AI is definitely making its way into the courtroom.
Right.
We're looking at a case, Stephanie Wadsworth and others
Okay.
versus Walmart Incorporated and Jetson Electric Bikes.
Mm.
And honestly,
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe this story if it wasn't all laid out
Right.
in the actual legal documents.
Yeah.
Plus, we've got this email,
Right.
which gives us kind of a peek behind the scenes.
Uh-huh.
So a lawyer tries to use AI to help with his case,
Mm.
and the AI throws in some made-up legal cases.
Oh, wow.
Fake precedents.
Oh.
The judge is not happy.
It's fascinating how AI is being adopted so quickly.
I know, right?
All sorts of professional fields.
Yeah.
Now it's even impacting the legal world.
And this isn't some theoretical what if.
Right.
This actually happened.
Yeah.
Let's break down exactly what went down.
Absolutely in this case. So we have attorney Rudwin Ayala.
Okay.
He works for Morgan & Morgan.
Huge firm.
Huge firm.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 attorneys.
Whoa.
He was preparing motions
Okay.
for a product liability case,
Uh-huh.
and he decided to use the firm's internal AI tool
I mean, you can see how it would seem like a good idea.
to speed things up.
Yeah.
But
But there's a catch, right?
a big one.
Okay.
The AI started fabricating case citations,
What?
making up entire legal precedents.
Really?
And one detail that really caught the judge's attention,
Okay.
the AI referenced a smoking shed.
A smoking shed?
Yeah,
That's pretty specific.
it is.
It's like, was the AI trying to build a whole narrative
Right.
around this fictional smoking shed?
It's hard to say what was going on in
Oh.
AI's algorithms,
Yeah.
but it certainly raised a lot of red flags.
Uh-huh.
The judge issued an order to show cause.
What does that mean?
It's basically a legal way of saying,
Okay.
you better come explain these bogus citations.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So both Ayala
Okay.
and one of the firm's senior partners,
Okay.
T. Michael Morgan,
Hmm.
submitted declarations to the court
Okay.
trying to explain what happened.
Okay.
It's interesting to read Ayala's account.
Yeah.
He admits this was the first time he'd ever used AI
The first time.
for this kind of legal research.
Wow.
Yeah,
Raises questions.
about how much training and guidance
Right.
Morgan & Morgan provided
Yeah.
on using this AI tool responsibly.
You'd think a firm that big
Right,
would have really robust training in place,
you would think.
especially with something as potentially game-changing as AI.
Morgan claims the firm emphasizes responsible use
Okay.
and stresses that attorneys must always review
Yeah.
any AI-generated content.
Okay.
But in Ayala's case,
Right.
it seems there might have been a gap
It's like disconnect.
between the firm's policy
Yeah.
and what was actually happening on the ground.
So it's kind of like the firm had good intentions,
It seems like it.
but maybe didn't do enough
Yeah,
to make sure everyone was on the same page.
right.
When it came to using this powerful tool.
And just to be clear,
Okay.
the plaintiff's local counsel,
Uh-huh.
Taylor Goody,
Mm-hmm.
stated she had no knowledge or involvement
Okay.
with drafting the motion that Ayala prepared
So this really seems to center.
around Ayala and his use
Yeah.
of the firm's AI tool.
Okay, so we got this AI system spitting out fake cases.
Right.
A lawyer who maybe didn't get enough training.
Yeah.
And a judge who is definitely not impressed.
Right.
What can you tell us about the AI platform itself?
Well, we have this declaration
Okay.
from Yath Akukumar,
Okay.
the chief transformation officer
Okay.
at Morgan & Morgan,
Okay.
which gives us a little glimpse
Yeah.
behind the curtain.
Okay.
Their AI system is called MX2.law,
MX2.law.
and it was launched in November 2024.
So fairly new then.
Yeah.
It's not like this was some outdated system
Yeah.
they'd been using for years.
Exactly. According to Thaya Kumar, they designed it
Okay.
with privacy and high PA compliance in mind.
Which makes sense given the sensitivity of legal work.
Right. And they tried to make it user-friendly.
So they were trying to be responsible,
It seems so.
at least on the data security front.
Yeah.
But that doesn't explain why the AI came up with this whole smoke and shed business.
Right. And they did make an effort
Oh, yeah.
to make the system user-friendly
Uh-huh.
and integrate it into their
Yeah.
existing document management platform.
Okay.
What's interesting is that they specifically instructed
Okay.
all users that AI-generated content
Okay.
must be reviewed by attorneys.
So they were aware of the potential for these hallucinations.
They actually use that term
Oh, wow.
in the instructions
Wow.
and emphasize that any AI-generated responses
Right.
should be carefully scrutinized
Okay.
because the AI could hallucinate
That's pretty forward thinking.
It does seem like it.
To acknowledge those limitations.
Yeah.
Most people think of AI as this infallible machine.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they were trying to be proactive.
They even went so far
Oh.
as to implement a comprehensive training program after the system was launched.
Okay.
We're talking firm-wide webinars,
Okay.
detailed documentation,
Yeah.
even optional small group,
Wow.
hands-on training sessions.
So they had the warnings in place.
They did?
They had the training.
Yes.
So what went wrong?
That's what's so puzzling.
Yeah.
Ayala claims he doesn't recall
Okay.
any specific instructions on how to use the internal AI tool, but he does admit that he was relying on the AI to bolster his arguments,
Right.
and that he didn't verify the case citations before submitting the motion.
So maybe a combination of factors?
Possibly.
A new system?
Yeah.
Some lack of clarity around
Right.
its limitations
Yeah.
and human error?
Seems like a perfect storm of things that could go wrong.
It's like giving someone a chainsaw
Right.
without telling them how to use it safely.
Yeah.
You're bound to have some accidents.
That's a very vivid analogy.
Yeah.
I think that captures the essence of the problem.
Yeah.
We can't just assume that AI will always work perfectly
Right.
or that it can replace human judgment.
So what happens next?
Well,
Yeah.
the judge hasn't issued a ruling yet
Okay.
on the sanctions against Ayala and Morgan,
Uh-huh.
but this case has already sent shockwaves
I bet.
through the legal community.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call about the need for caution and vigilance
Right.
when incorporating AI into legal practice.
And it raises so many questions.
It does.
How do we balance the potential benefits of AI?
Yeah.
Things like increased efficiency and access to information with the risks of inaccuracies and the potential for, well, legal chaos.
Exactly. And how do we ensure that human judgment remains at the forefront of legal decision-making, even as AI becomes more sophisticated?
Yeah. It's like we're on the cusp of a technological revolution.
I agree.
In the legal field.
Yeah.
But we're still figuring out the rules of the road.
Absolutely.
Before we get too deep into those bigger questions, let's go back to Morgan for a moment.
Okay.
How did they react?
Well,
after this whole smoking shed incident?
This is where it gets interesting. After the incident came to light, they added a mandatory click box to their AI platform.
So the AI platform?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Now users have to explicitly acknowledge that they understand the limitations of AI and their own responsibility in verifying its output.
It's kind of like they're saying, hey, we told you.
Yeah.
Don't blame us if the AI goes rogue.
Right.
But does that really absolve them of all responsibility?
It's a complex issue.
What do you think?
They've clearly taken some steps to mitigate the risk.
Yeah.
But is it enough? That's something we need to consider carefully.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But before we get too far, let's take a closer look at Ayala's declaration. There's a detail in there that I think sheds some light on how this whole situation came about.
Okay, I'm curious.
Ayala mentions that this was his first time using AI for legal research. But he also points to a lack of specific instructions on how to use the internal AI tool.
I see.
He says he doesn't recall any specific training on how to use the AI effectively.
I see.
Or how to identify potential issues like, made-up smoking sheds.
That's interesting.
So even though Morgan had these training programs in place, it sounds like there might not have been enough emphasis on the practicalities.
The practicalities.
Of using the AI for legal research.
Right.
Perhaps the training focused more on the theory of AI.
Yeah.
And less on the hands-on application.
Right. It's one thing to talk about AI in the abstract.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to actually use it.
In the real world.
In the real world.
With real clients.
With real clients?
And real cases on the line.
Absolutely.
It highlights the need for legal education to keep up.
I agree.
With the rapid pace of technological change.
Yeah.
Law schools, law firms need to be proactive in training lawyers on how to use these tools.
Responsibly and ethically.
You can't just throw lawyers in the deep end with these powerful AI tools and expect them to figure it all out on their own.
And it's not just about the lawyers.
Right.
Judges, clerks.
Yeah.
Everyone involved in the legal system.
Needs to be educated.
Needs to be educated.
With about AI's capabilities and limitations.
Absolutely.
This isn't just a lawyer problem.
Right.
This is a legal system problem.
It is.
And it's one that we're only just beginning to grapple with.
Yeah.
But we're going to delve into those bigger questions about the future of AI and law in Part 2.
Sounds good.
Stay with us.
All right.
This deep dive is just getting started.
Okay. Welcome back to Part 2 of our deep dive into the AI lawyer who cited fake cases.
You know, when you first told me about this case, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
A smoking shed.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Sounded like something out of a comedy sketch.
It is a rather bizarre detail for the AI to fabricate.
It makes you wonder about the inner workings of these AI systems and how they come up with this stuff.
It does.
But the more we dig into this, the more I realize just how serious the implications are.
Yeah, it's not a laughing matter.
We've talked about AI hallucination.
Right.
But I'm still curious about the how and the why.
Yeah.
Do you think this specific incident could have been prevented?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
If we look closely at Yath Ithai-Kumar's declaration.
Remember, he's the Chief Transformation Officer at Morgan & Morgan.
At Morgan & Morgan.
We get some insights into their AI system, mx2.law.
They launched it in November 2024.
So it's still relatively new.
Still relatively new.
At the time of the incident.
At the time. They designed it with privacy and HIPAA compliance in mind.
Which makes sense given the sensitivity of legal work.
The legal work.
So they were trying to be responsible.
Yeah.
At least on the data security front.
At least on that front.
But that doesn't explain why the AI came up with this smoking shed business.
Right. And they did make an effort to make the system user-friendly.
Okay.
And integrate it into their existing document management platform. What's particularly interesting is they specifically instructed all users that AI-generated content must be reviewed by attorneys.
So they were aware of the potential for these hallucinations.
They actually used that term in the instructions.
Wow.
And emphasized that any AI-generated responses should be carefully scrutinized because the AI could hallucinate.
That's pretty forward-thinking.
It is.
To acknowledge those limitations right from the start.
Yeah.
Most people think of AI as this infallible machine.
Right.
So it sounds like they were trying to be proactive.
They even went so far as to implement a comprehensive training program after the system was launched. Firm-wide webinars. Detailed documentation. Even optional small group.
Wow.
Hands-on training sessions.
So they had the warnings in place.
Yes.
They had the training.
They did.
So what went wrong?
That's what's so puzzling.
Yeah.
Ayala claims he doesn't recall any specific instructions on how to use the internal AI tool. But he does admit that he was relying on the AI to bolster his arguments.
Right.
And that he didn't verify the case citations before submitting the motion.
So maybe a combination of factors then.
Possible.
A new system. Some lack of clarity around its limitations. And human error.
It seems like a perfect storm of things that could go wrong.
It's like giving someone a chainsaw.
Right.
Without telling them how to use it safely.
Right.
You're bound to have some accidents.
That's a very vivid analogy.
Yeah, but I think it really captures the essence of the problem.
I agree.
We can't just assume that AI will always work perfectly.
We can't.
Or that it can replace human judgment.
Right.
So what happens next?
Well, the judge hasn't issued a ruling yet.
Oh, okay.
On the sanctions against Ayala and Morgan & Morgan.
But this case has already sent shockwaves.
I imagine so.
Through the legal community.
It's a wake-up call about the need for caution and vigilance when incorporating AI into legal practice.
And it raises so many questions.
So many questions.
How do we balance the potential benefits of AI?
Right.
Things like increased efficiency and access to information.
Yeah.
With the risks of inaccuracies and the potential for legal chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. And how do we ensure that human judgment remains at the forefront of legal decision-making? Yeah. Even as AI becomes more sophisticated.
It's like we're on the cusp of a technological revolution.
I agree.
In the legal field, but we're still figuring out the rules of the road.
We are.
Before we get too lost in the future of law.
Okay.
There's another detail in the source material that I wanted to come back to.
Okay.
Remember that click box that Morgan & Morgan added to their AI platform?
Oh, yeah.
After the smoking shed incident?
The mandatory acknowledgement of AI's limitations?
Read about it.
Yeah, what about it?
Well, it's not just a simple I agree button.
Okay.
The wording is actually quite specific.
Okay.
It states that users must independently verify all information before using it.
All right.
And that no warranties or representations are made regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of the AI-generated content.
That's a very crucial point. It underscores that AI is not a substitute for human expertise.
Yeah.
And that lawyers still bear the ultimate responsibility for the work they produce.
It's like saying, hey, this AI is a powerful tool, but use it at your own risk.
Yeah, right.
Don't come crying to us if it hallucinates a smoking shed into your legal arguments.
The colorful way of putting it.
But this click box highlights a critical shift in responsibility.
Yes.
It's no longer enough for law firms to simply provide access to AI tools. They also need to educate their attorneys.
They do.
On how to use these tools responsibly and ethically.
I agree.
And it sounds like they're finally taking that responsibility seriously.
It seems like it.
But what does this mean for the future of AI and law?
Yeah.
Is this the beginning of a more cautious approach?
It's hard to say for sure.
Or will we see more cases like this one?
Yeah.
As firms rush to adopt AI without fully understanding the risks.
This case has certainly raised the stakes.
Yeah.
It's a warning sign that we need to proceed with caution and develop clear guidelines for responsible AI use.
Okay, so we've talked about the smoking shed incident.
We have.
The players involved.
Yes.
Morgan & Morgan's AI platform.
Right.
And even the implications for the future of law.
We have.
What else can we glean from this case? Is there anything we've missed?
There is one crucial aspect that we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
The role of the judge.
Ah, the judge.
In all of this.
Okay.
The judge's order to show cause wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was a clear message that the court takes the accuracy and integrity of legal filings very seriously.
Right. It's a reminder that AI can't operate in a vacuum.
It can't.
There are real-world consequences to its actions.
Absolutely.
And the legal system is ultimately responsible for holding everyone accountable.
Right.
Even when AI is involved. The judge's involvement highlights the need.
It does.
For clear guidelines and standards for using AI in court.
It does.
We need to ensure that AI is used in a way that supports, not undermines, the principles of justice and fairness.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder if judges will need to become more tech-savvy in the future.
It's certainly a possibility.
Able to distinguish between legitimate legal arguments and AI-generated hallucinations. I mean, how can they ensure a fair trial if they can't tell what's real and what's been fabricated by an AI?
We might even see the emergence of specialized courts or legal experts who focus specifically on AI-related issues. The legal landscape is changing rapidly, and the role of the judge will likely evolve alongside it.
Wow. So many things to consider.
I know.
This smoking shed incident has really opened up a Pandora's box.
It has.
Of legal and ethical questions.
It has indeed.
It's like we're stepping into uncharted territory.
We are.
And I have a feeling we'll be discussing this case for years to come.
I think we will.
It's a fascinating example.
It is.
Of how AI is challenging our existing legal frameworks.
Yes.
And forcing us to rethink the boundaries of responsibility and accountability.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, it's time to move on to part 3.
Okay.
Of our deep dive, where we'll explore the ethical implications of AI and law.
Sounds good.
And discuss what this case means for the future of the legal profession.
Great.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the AI lawyer who cited those fake cases.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Exploring this case.
Stephanie Wadsworth and others versus Walmart Inc. and Jetson Electric Bikes.
All right.
It's raised so many questions about the role of AI in the legal system.
It really has.
But I think there's one big question we haven't really tackled yet.
What's that?
Well, we've talked about what happened, why it happened, and the potential consequences.
Right.
But what about the ethical implications?
Yeah, this case really throws a spotlight on some murky territory.
It's like we've opened up Pandora's box.
I agree.
And all these ethical dilemmas are flying out.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin? What are the most pressing ethical concerns with using AI in law?
Well, one of the biggest issues is transparency.
Transparency.
Yeah, should opposing counsel and the court be informed that AI was used in drafting legal documents?
Okay.
Right now, there's no clear standard.
So it's kind of a free-for-all.
It is.
Some lawyers might be using AI extensively and not even mentioning it.
Right.
While others might be avoiding it completely.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about the ethical implications.
Exactly. And that lack of clarity creates an uneven playing field.
Right.
It also raises questions about the fairness and integrity of the legal process itself.
If one side is using AI to gain an advantage without disclosing it,
right,
it undermines the whole thing.
It undermines the principles of justice.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, if we don't address these ethical concerns now, what happens down the road when AI becomes even more powerful?
That's a great question.
And sophisticated.
What happens then?
Yeah, like if AI starts generating fake evidence.
Right.
Or making biased arguments without anyone realizing it.
It could erode public trust.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
To think that AI could potentially manipulate the legal system.
Right.
Without anyone even knowing.
And that's why it highlights the need for clear ethical guidelines and regulations around AI use in law.
I agree.
We need to be having these conversations now.
We do.
Before it's too late.
Absolutely. But it seems like such a complex issue.
It is a complex issue.
Where do we even begin?
A good starting point, I think, is to establish clear rules about transparency.
Okay.
If lawyers are using AI in their work, they should be obligated to disclose that.
To disclose it.
To the court and opposing counsel.
I mean, that seems fair.
It does.
It would level the playing field.
Exactly.
And ensure that everyone is aware of how AI is being used in a case.
Right. And it would also allow for greater scrutiny of AI-generated content.
Okay.
If everyone knows AI is involved, they can be more vigilant about checking for errors, biases, or outright fabrications.
It's like adding an extra layer of accountability to the process.
Exactly.
But transparency is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
It is.
What other ethical considerations do we need to address?
Another key concern is bias.
Bias.
AI systems are trained on massive data sets.
Right.
And if those data sets reflect existing biases in the legal system, the AI will simply perpetuate those biases.
So if the data used to train the AI reflects historical, racial, or gender disparities in sentencing, for example, the AI might recommend harsher sentences for certain groups of people, even if it's not explicitly programmed to do so.
That's exactly the danger.
Wow.
We need to be incredibly careful about the data we use to train these systems and ensure that it is as unbiased as possible.
It's like that old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If you feed the AI biased data,
you're
going to get biased results.
Exactly. And the consequences of those biased results could be devastating.
Especially in a field like law, where people's lives and freedoms are at stake.
Exactly.
So what's the solution? How do we make sure that AI is used ethically and responsibly in law?
It's definitely a challenge, but I don't think it's insurmountable. We need a multi-pronged approach that includes transparency, rigorous testing and auditing of AI systems, ongoing education for everyone involved in the legal system, and clear ethical guidelines that are enforced and updated regularly.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
But it's clearly work that needs to be done.
Yes, we can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend that these ethical dilemmas will go away on their own.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening for me.
It has been fascinating.
I never realized just how complex and nuanced this issue of AI in law really is.
It's complicated.
What do you think is the most important takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think the key takeaway is that AI is a powerful tool.
Right.
With the potential to revolutionize the legal system. But it's not a magic solution. And it's not a replacement for human judgment. We need to approach AI in law with caution, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of the ethical implications.
Well said. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For this deep dive into the world of AI in the courtroom.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. As AI continues to evolve, the legal landscape will change with it.
It will.
And we all need to be prepared for what lies ahead.
Me too.
Don't forget to leave your thoughts and comments on the episode page.
Yes, please do.
We'd love to hear your perspective on this fascinating and rapidly developing field.